A lot of people rightfully hate Adobe, but sometimes you have to deal with things you hate. If you work for people that make use of the Adobe suite, or you have clients that expect Adobe things, you kinda have to use the Adobe things. And on Linux, that's a bit of a problem. Now, a lot of the older stuff, like CS5 and stuff like that, generally works pretty well. But the modern stuff, not so much. Nowadays, there are projects like WinApps, which is basically running Windows in a Docker container, so you can run the Adobe suite inside of that, and it works. It's not perfect, it's not amazing, but it is better than nothing. But this isn't really running it on Linux. You're running it in a Windows container that is running on Linux, so you're effectively running it on Windows. So what a lot of people want is a way to easily run this software straight through Wine. Wine is the common way to translate Windows things into Linux things. Nowadays, with Creative Cloud, it's a little funky. Sometimes people get things working, but usually it's not consistent, and it's a whole big mess. Oftentimes, the apps themselves do work, but you kinda usually need the installer to install the apps. In the cases where people manage to get the apps without the installer, a lot of the time it actually works relatively well. The installer itself is usually the breaking point. But thanks to a developer, that is now in the process of changing. I am not going to call you a Redditor, unlike a bunch of random news outlets did. Yes, it was posted on Reddit, but they're a software developer. That's kind of the important part, not the forum they posted on. Recently, this post was made. I made Adobe CC, that being Creative Cloud installers, work on Linux. Along with the more recent one, now the Creative Collection installer works too. You're gonna notice this, interesting header. Clearly they're running a Windows theme on their system. Is not my vibe, but I appreciate it. It should be noted that whilst I did say the apps generally do work, it's not always the case. So the 2021 installer and app do work mostly fine. Drag and drop, though, doesn't work, but that's very possibly a Wayland problem. As for the 2025 app, the developer does know that is still broken. The installer works, it's just the app itself doesn't, which is not exactly useful. Yeah, it's cool you can install it, but usually you want to be able to actually run it. However, that is something they are working on, so hopefully at some point that is also resolved. Whilst the patch does exist and does work, don't get too excited yet, because it's not present in any release version of Wine. Better yet, it's not present in any version of Wine that you might reasonably use. So the developer submitted the patch here. This is Files Basement, this is their GitHub name. This is a Wine repo. It's Valve's Wine repo. Fix JavaScript dispatch, event handling, and XML parsing for Adobe installers. There is a lot of hype behind these patches, a lot of excitement about getting this resolved, but this isn't the place to submit the patch. So Kisak Valve said, "Hello Files Basement, you've come across a downstream fork of Wine. This pull request should be evaluated and merged upstream before considering if it should be backported to Proton." This is a repo that you probably are using, especially if you're playing games, but this is not the place to go and first submit a non-gaming related patch. Even gaming related stuff, a lot of the time you want to send it first up to Wine, and then in cases where it's not really relevant to Wine as a general project, then you bring it back down to the Valve project. When this PR was made is around about the time that outlets like Phoronix started covering this, and started being like, wow, this is amazing, awesome patch, it's in Valve's repo. So, like... Maybe don't get super excited just yet. Obviously, the pull request here was closed because it's just not relevant to this project. It might be relevant to the project, but Wine needs to see it first. And with that, since Valve doesn't do a crazy amount of moderation on their repo, this kind of became the place to sort of discuss this patch, at least temporarily, because there's not another open merge request or pull request. If we go to the Wine repo, as of the recording of this, that has yet to be opened. Unless you're some god among men perfect developer, you're likely not going to do things perfectly in the first shot, and when you want to upstream something, there is going to be some additional work, some additional tweaking, cleaning things up, testing it, all this good stuff, but that in and of itself is not actually the reason why it's not been opened, because you could still open a merge request even with additional upstream work needed to be done. Someone obviously said, hey, maybe PR it to the wine repo, and they said, historically getting things merged can take a while. Valve's fork moves faster, and if it proves stable there, it has a better path to upstream anyway. This is before anything was closed. This is when things were first opened. Obviously, that didn't work out in his favor. The guess was more of a bet to get it out to people faster, because sometimes Valve does accept PRs, even when not immediately connected to gaming. Usually there is some tangential connection, it'll be related to a game launcher, things like that. When it's something expressly not related to gaming, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know of a case where they've accepted it. If they did accept it, usually because it's like being cherry-picked early, it's already in the upstream repo. And at the time, their main reasons for not opening a wine PR is they're busy. I don't know if they're a high school student or a university student or busy working. Any of these things could be true, so it's not a thing yet. Someone else asked the same thing, and he said, yeah, I've been considering, but Wine's contributing guidelines genuinely feel like I have to write the patches in punch cards, put them in an envelope, and send them via mail pigeon to them. Now, obviously, this is hyperbole. It's not actually that bad, but I have heard other people say their contribution guidelines can be a little bit confusing. For wine staging, it's especially painful with the whole Bugzilla tickets, tag maintainers, etc, but for normal wine, I physically cannot due to some limit they have on the GitLab instance that is blocking me from even forking it there to make a merge request. Now, apparently, there is some sort of verification process that you need to do, but if you just come to Wine and you want to submit something, that doesn't appear to be something that is explained to you. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my understanding. So this is basically where we are now. The patches were submitted to Valve, not upstream Wine. That still hasn't happened yet. And if you want to use the patches, they basically only exist in this person's fork of Wine in their personal repo, which is obviously very inconvenient to use, so anyone who's very excited about this change, you're probably better off waiting until they sort out getting this upstreamed, or even if somebody else goes and upstreams them. So until that day comes, this is very inconvenient to use, because nobody wants to go and build their own version of Wine and patch their own version of Wine. That is a giant hassle and very, very inconvenient. So hopefully, fingers crossed, things get dealt with. But if they don't, the patches are still there, and there are things like WinApps, so you certainly do have options. They're just not the best options they could be. So, yeah. I know a lot of people don't like Adobe, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, why would you even bother using Adobe on Linux? And understandable. If you have the choice to not use Adobe, don't use Adobe. But if you're in a position where you want to use Linux, but you also want to work a job that requires this software, sometimes you don't get a choice. Yeah, GIMP is pretty good at handling Photoshop files now, but it's not perfect. And if somebody hands you a file, you save it, you send it back to them, and now it's broken, that can't be done. Anyway, if you liked the video, go like the video, go subscribe as well, and if you really like the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon subscribe Stelly Pay linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and I don't like Adobe, but I like people having things they want to use. That's just me.